When the Medicare Centre and the Medical Benefits Fund Rockdale branch closed down and a larger shopping complex was built further down the road, many people thought this spelt the death for the Rockdale Shopping Centre. But it didn't. This brief documentary gives one explanation for why it didn't. Coles and Woolworths closed down, a number of bargain-type shops sprung up to replace them. As well, so did a number of money-lending or pawn shops. In fact, in the one small shopping strip, there are at least 4 pawn shops operating at the moment, and perhaps a 5th one is on the way. And while at least 2 are well established, the others have just recently sprung up. It makes you wonder just why there is such a market for these type of establishments, and what type of punters are they capitalising on? Well, that is perhaps exactly who they are capitalising on, punters. Perhaps large numbers of their customers are gamblers. Now, thanks to our governments, 24-hour poker machines can be found not only in large clubs like Canterbury or St George Leagues, but small hotels, not unlike 2 in the Rockdale Shopping Centre. Add that to the existing large gaming rooms in the Rockdale RSL and Businessmen's Club, and you have a lot of punters losing a lot of money. I now have the opportunity to speak to Fadi Angel, a clinical psychologist working for the Gambling Research Unit at Sydney University. Having seen the previous slide showing commentary, would you agree that a reasonable conclusion was reached? And if so, do you think this type of scenario is isolated to Rockdale?
Certainly the introduction of more gaming machines and the coincidental rise of number of pawn shops seems to suggest that what you're saying is actually perhaps a reasonable explanation. I think if you go anywhere in Sydney, wherever you'll find a gambling venue, you'll find a pawn shop close by, because the pawnbrokers understand that those people who get themselves into the strife as a result of gambling will inevitably resolve to pawn some of their household goods or personal goods.
What advice, I know you've given me some, would you give to someone who's got a gambling problem, or they think they don't have a gambling problem but they gamble regularly?
And you've got, say, for example, the breadwinner or one of the partners. The problem gambler is either spending too much money, too much of the family money, or just simply spending time away from the family. Both can lead to adverse consequences, and perhaps in more severe cases, separation or breakdown of the family unit. If there's kids involved, obviously those effects are not going to be advantageous to the kids as well. And right down to an individual perspective, problem gamblers usually become quite depressed, a lot of guilt. In the extreme cases, suicidal ideation. Even the most extreme cases is actual carrying out of an attempt on one's own life. Any figure that's less than 10% of your disposable income is an acceptable figure to be gambling with. Although I do caution the 10%. Begin to focus on what is the most likely outcome of any gambling session. That is seeing gambling for its essence. And the most likely outcome, not to say that anything's certain, but the most likely thing to happen is a loss. So when you start thinking things like, although it would be nice to win, it would be nice to come out with a little bit more money, what is most likely to happen is I'm probably going to end up losing my money. Now when you're switching your focus to possibility of loss, and you've got more concern about loss, then that de-energizes gambling. In other words, it tends to motivate the person not to gamble when they've switched their emphasis to concern for loss as opposed to hopes of winning.
Thank you. At the time this was made, Rockdale RSL had 115 poker machines. There are at least 100 more in walking distance, and 60 of them are at venues open 24 hours daily.